Welcome to Barns and Farms with a Side of Cornbread. This is Shayne Hollifield. If it lives on a farm, sleeps in a barn, or loves Southern food, then we're going to talk about it. We're here with Haley Polk. Her and Robert Polk own the Olive Branch Cattle Company down in Marion, North Carolina. And today I want to talk a little bit about food first. So, this is Barns and Farms with a Side of Cornbread. So I feel it only fitting to bring you a whole cake of cornbread today with, your carb-loving children, some macaroni and cheese and fried chicken tenders. Well, I've known the Polk family for a long time, and I feel like I'm getting to know you this year, or this past year, a lot better, and I love that.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, once you see someone at their most scrambled, you pretty much see all sides of them. So you're definitely in the close circle now.
That's good. I like being in the close circle. So let's just give a little bit about the name Olive Branch Cattle Company, because it has a little specialness to it.
Yes. So, we've always farmed for our own family. We've always owned, 10, 20, 30 acres. We had about 10 or less cows, a few goats, and a garden just to feed our family, not to make profit, just to feed family and friends and keep us from going to the grocery store. And we just love it. And then in 2020, we gave birth to my youngest child. I have 4 kids, and she was born. We were surprised to find out she's very special needs. So she has Down syndrome, an array of health problems. And so we were not prepared for that. And so that took a lot of time. We quickly realized farming and while taking care of a special needs newborn, like there wasn't enough time in the day.
Yeah. And it's not enough hours.
Literally. So we decided that we were going to have to make some changes, and we were not willing to give up on our lifestyle. And so my daughter Olive being born pushed us 2 years ago to farm full time for profit. So that's why we named it Olive Branch Cattle Company. I know we never would have taken the leap and dreamed this big without her being born. So the whole farm's named after her.
Yeah, and I feel like when I first saw the name, I was like, you could not have come up with a better name. It's amazing. So thanks for sharing that with us. And as some of you may know, that we were here with the Mountain Magnolias radio show and interviewing you right after Helene, just to get the word out about your distribution center for local farmers. This is a little different direction. I want to talk about the appreciation for the farmers that helped you with so many donations. It was amazing to witness what happened here. And then we're going to talk a little bit about you and your abilities to run the ship, as I say.
The ship stayed above water, and that's all that mattered.
That's
and
right.
So, yeah.
So there were plenty of farmers that we would like to highlight that went above and beyond with their generosity of donating hay, feed, farm supplies. So I'm going to let you just do a little bit of talking about that.
Great. Okay. So I always, every speech or podcast I do, I always mention April, how important she was to all of this. So, we hadn't planned to be a distribution center. We were out of hay. We lost, I had 1 bale left, and we lost all our grain. So we were in the same position as a lot of other people. I was already thinking, okay, we're going to have to make some cuts. I can't feed all these horses. Where are we going to get hay at? So April was super important. She somehow messaged me, none of us had service, and she somehow messaged me through Facebook around the 5th day and said, I have 300 bales. Can you use them? And I was like, yes, thank God. I was so happy. And she said, do you know anyone else that can? And so that is literally what started everything. I was on a mission because I just knew literally in the 5 miles from my house, there had to be lots of other people that were in the same position we were in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so April is super important. And she has supported us throughout this journey, showing up, unloading. I still want to hang out with April after this. So April, if you hear this, we're going to hang out one day when we're not stressed out slinging hay.
Perfect. And April will hear this because her and Sarah are close, and Sarah keeps saying, when are you going to let the podcast hit the air? I'm like, soon.
Awesome.
So no, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I thought that was interesting.
That is funny. Yeah, I think we all made a lot of connections after this that are actually going to carry over for a little bit. Absolutely. At least for me personally. So April started the whole thing. She gets honestly every single prop there is to get. And so we got the 300 bales. I don't know how she did it. She rallied people, literally had them driving, no GPS, no cell phone. She rallied vets from Virginia. I mean, she came in like a ray of light with like trucks, trailers, and volunteers. And it was just the best, literally the best start there could have been. They brought us homemade cookies.
Awesome.
It was so sweet. And so and they brought tons of feed. So we very quickly blew through that. I mean, a day, 2 days, very fast. Word traveled very, very quickly. And so I just thought, oh man, like I was getting so many messages. I'm like, I don't have anything to give anybody. And at that point, I sat aside like a very tiny amount, maybe enough hay to get me through the week. So I just knew the struggle wasn't over. And then we had another group message us, fencing supplies and hay rings and tarps. And I'm like, yes. Like yes, whatever you want to bring, yes. And then they would say something like, okay, we'll be there this date. And it was so weird just trusting that people could figure out the logistics. And they totally did. They came with all their kids. I was a group of around 10 people. They came with their kids. And a lot of people hadn't met each other before. They all just like ganged up to roll out and save the day. They came with their children. They came with their adult children. They came with volunteers. And it was about 7 big diesel trucks, long trailers, just packed to the brim.
I think that's amazing that people that don't even know each other, that's the beauty of what's happened here in the midst of all the devastation and disaster. It's just the beauty of people coming together.
Yeah, it was like something I'll personally never forget. They almost didn't make
chills.
it. I get chills. They almost didn't make it. They lost 2 transmissions. 2 trucks didn't make it. And then when they were an hour and a half out, they had blown through, I can't remember. I think they said they brought 10 spare tires. They blew through all 10 because you have to remember, everything was closed.
Yeah.
There was no easy way in. So they're taking back roads. I mean,
that's so hard kind of stuff. Yeah,
and they're so weighed down with pallets and pallets and pallets of feed. And they figured out how to get diesel to get here. They had no GPS. I mean, when he got here, he had like a paper map. And I'm like, I haven't seen one of those.
I love those.
In like 20 years. Yeah. So we ended up, he had some service and he called, he said, we're so close. We went through our last tire. Is there any way y'all can bring us a tire? So Robert drives around, my husband, and there's nobody's open. Well, somehow he hustles the exact tire they need,
of course,
drives it to them, leads them here, and they get here about 10:30 at night. And we unload till well after midnight. I mean, their kids were in my house playing, and we all ate outside, and we all prayed, and we were all too tired to just do it quickly. So we just made a night of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I have chills right now just thinking about it. And I mean, this happened every day for months.
Every day. Yeah. Every day we would, we don't have a giant barn. We have a pole barn, and then we have cattle trailers. And we would fill everything up to the brim. And then it would get, totally empty. And I was like, okay, this is it. And then that night I'd get another call. Hey, do you need blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yes. And then they would arrive.
So that's the Lord's hand in that. Yeah. Exactly what you needed being provided, for sure. So I was going to make a little joke about trying to help you a little bit more physically, showing up right in the nick of time, 20 minutes late for unloading the 600 bales of hay, but
Yeah, I don't tell people. I'm like, oh, just come. I'm sure there'll be something to do. And when they come, I already know I'm like, they're going to be working hard. There's a lot to do.
That's right.
That's right. At such a good time. We did that. We did that podcast.
That's right. That's right.
And then literally, I think when we wrapped it up, 1 minute later, the trucks came rolling in.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah, I like to laugh that I did some behind the scene things for Haley. I didn't want to have to do all that manual.
You did a lot of behind the scene things, and last Saturday I got a call from all those flyers you made.
Oh, really?
So Shayne reached out after this started and was like, "What can I do?" And I just thought, there's so many of these farmers that aren't on social media. I would say 80% of them.
Yeah.
And so I said, go to the rural areas, just design any flyer you want, put our name, put our address, and put that we're a distribution center, and just pass them out. And
Grocery stores and gas stations. That's
that
what
worked
gets them. They have to go there. So.
Good. We're still getting calls about those flyers, so that was a big one.
Good. I didn't mean to interrupt you about the Kentucky View because they were so amazing. So let's.
Oh yeah, they're amazing. All right. So they just, they were this huge ray of light that felt like super, super surreal, and then they left, and then it was just amazing. Like words can't describe it, honestly, because the needs were coming in tenfold. Yeah. Like it felt very heavy sometimes. So then we would run out, and then we'd have someone else call, or actually what started happening was people were just showing up 10 o'clock at night, rolling in with hay. My husband probably lost 30 pounds. He's already a very fit man, but he moved so much hay, and I did too, but I'm not very efficient. But Robert worked extremely, extremely hard because if donations were coming in, I didn't care. We're getting them. We're getting to the farm. There was a time someone pulled up, and me and Robert looked at each other and were like, we can't do it. Like, my body was done. So I hopped in the Polaris, and I drove down the road.
Gathering neighbors.
Yes. I went to some church that I knew had a lot of volunteers, and I was like, can anyone come move hay?
Amazing.
So these boys from Louisiana hopped in the back of the Polaris, and we pulled up, and they lit a cigarette, and we moved a lot of hay.
See, that's how you do it. And that's one thing. Another thing, I want to talk about your amazing ability to manage things. I mean, you're a mom, you have kids, you have a farm, you have all these animals. Robert, at the time, was going out and trying to replace roofs and give a big shout out to Native Roofing, because Robert is one of the hardest workers that I know. He's an amazing guy. But you have this ability that this from my point of view looked like clockwork. Like, I know it was chaos. I know that every day. But look at these notebooks you have right here. I mean, you have not left one person hanging that locally needed anything, hay, feed, any kind of farm supply. So I wanted to make sure that this podcast did give you a huge shout out, and I am so proud to be your friend to see you do this.
Oh, thank you, Shayne. Yeah. That's so sweet, because it was hard. Like, we have a roofing company we started not super long ago, and so all of a sudden this was a great opportunity for our family. I mean, we lost a lot of things on this farm too. Nothing close to what other people lost, but we had damages we had to pay for, and we, like everyone, we were nervous about the future. So absolutely. It was a really hard balance. I felt absolutely called to do the distribution, and yet I knew 100% God was blessing us through our roofing company. And Robert felt called to continue doing that. So we both just had to have no feelings at that point and have thick skin. And I feel really proud how he took care, and he still is taking care of all those customers. I mean, people's roofs leaking is a huge deal. That's not something you can just put on hold. People were calling, oh, there's a tree. Is there any way you can get out here tomorrow? And so I don't think we slept for 4 weeks. Yeah. But the amount of productivity we were able to do was totally worth it.
Running on adrenaline. That's what it's like, running on adrenaline. So, if there's one thing that stands out to you, like one message that you felt like God was repetitively sending you to help you get through this, is there something like that you can think of, or was it just you just felt him and felt moved to do it?
Oh gosh, I feel like there were a lot of messages. I had luckily in the last couple of years gotten really honest with God. And one thing I ask of him is just write it on the wall. Make it so obvious. Slap me in the face with what I'm supposed to do when regards to my children and Olive and my marriage and the farm. I need you to take the thinking out for me. And so when he just sent April, and when I'm not kidding you, for a month I never had to ask for a donation.
Yeah.
They were just flowing in. And so for me, I felt like God said, I'm giving you what you asked for, and now's your time to take it and run with it. And if you don't complain.
There you go.
And so I kept going.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about some of the other nice people.
Okay. So there's so many. So this wonderful lady, Joy. Oh wow, I could talk about her for literally hours. I'm gonna go visit her sometime. She and her husband came there from Texas. They either run or work for, I can't remember, something called Revive Christian Ministries.
Okay.
And she has a long history with farming and rodeoing. And
she's a Texas girl.
She's a Texas girl. And she pulled up and she was like, hey y'all. And I was like, oh, come here. I was so happy. And she was like, do you need help? And, you know, if anyone asks me that, I'm going to give you like 25 things to do.
Absolutely.
And so she looks around and she looks at the notebooks and she looks at all the hay and she's like, I don't want to be rude, but you need an Excel spreadsheet. I mean, she just came in like so funny and so herself, and I loved it. And I'm like, oh, I like this lady.
Oh, yeah.
So she ended up staying for days. Like, we got to know her and her husband super well. We cooked out together. They moved hay. They helped watch the kids. They prayed for us. I mean, her and I walked through the woods just talking for 20 minutes, which I hadn't taken time to do that. We fellowshipped, and so that was a breath of fresh air for me. And I think they saw how hard we were working. And as they left, they actually offered to buy us a shipping container because they saw how we were storing all these things was so difficult. We were crawling through cattle trailers, crawling over all this horse feed to get to one little bag of chicken feed somebody needed. And it really wasn't sustainable. And so she said, are you going to keep doing this? And I was like, I am. God told me when to start. God's going to tell me when to stop. And she was like, well, we're going to get you a 40-foot shipping container. We want you to fill it up. So
that's awesome. God sent Joy here too.
God sent Joy. Yeah. So I had a fun time with Joy. I'm totally going to go visit Joy one day. And so I feel proud. I feel like we've honored what Joy and Steve wanted us to do, and we have filled it up. You know, somehow we got in with Tractor Supply, and they have filled it up a few times. And so that shipping container has really taken us to the next level. So
I saw a huge shipment from the local Tractor Supply in Morganton. Is that right?
Yeah, they've actually donated 3 tons now, like thousands of dollars.
That's a blessing.
That is a huge blessing. And a lot of the times, what they would donate in bulk is exactly what people needed.
Yep, it's meant to be.
It was actually surreal. Someone called me. They had 19 horses. And they had lost their truck, their fencing, their farm truck, and their house was flooded up into the 2nd story.
Wow.
And she was just in tears. And, you know, once somebody cries, I'm crying. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
And her needs were so great. I just knew there was no way that we were going to be able to meet them. And I sat in my carport for like 4 hours thinking, how am I going to break it to this lady? And the next morning, Tractor Supply called, and they had like $5,000 of the exact feed that she needed. And so we picked it up and we took it right to her. And she called crying, you guys are an angel, you're doing God's work. So there's so many times that happened. And we were actually able to get her, she's still getting hay from Pennsylvania. So she's going to get I said, give me your whole list. What do you need for the whole winter? She said 200 horse bales. So
set up for
she's got about 50 and they're still bringing her more from Pennsylvania. So yeah, it really takes,
that is amazing.
Takes everybody. Another guy I really, really love, there's so many, and his name's Gary. And what I love about Gary, there's so many things, but I put out a Facebook post of desperation, made it shareable. There was a lady, we were able to get hay by helicopter, but it wasn't enough, and she needed more. And no helicopters were willing to do it anymore. They had moved on, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And so we needed to get this lady's barn filled. She lost her bridge. She was landlocked. So it was looking pretty dire. And her horses were way too old to cross the river. And the terrain was so deep. It just, she needed hay in that barn. So
it was an emergency.
It was an emergency. She needed to move on to her own needs.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had like 35 calls of people wanting to do this mission because it's really cool. I was like,
we're the zip line? Is that the zip line?
That's the zip line. So me and my great friend Kathy, hey Kathy, if you listen to this, I also love Kathy. So many awesome people, but her and I were out there for a few hours walking around. We're like, we're just going to make a raft. We're going to get some canoes or kayaks or whatever, put a piece of plywood on it and raft it across. And we did not end up doing that. Some people had some much better ideas, luckily. But I got 35 calls, people wanting to do that. Organizations, it's so cool. But nobody would finalize with me. Like, they wouldn't actually show up and do it. And so one day I was like, I'm going to take 3 hours to myself. So I just was home in my pajamas, literally. And a guy pulls up the driveway and he's like, is this Olive Branch? And I come out in my pajamas holding Olive with a cup of coffee.
This is Olive. Yeah.
I'm like, yes, sir. I deemed it pajama day. Sorry about that. And he was like, I want to do that mission, and we can get that hay across. I have a bunch of tractors and equipment and trailers and a backhoe and skid steers, and we're going to build her a 4-wheel drive Ford through the river, which I had to look up what a Ford was. Yeah, it was like a driveway with water crossing, and we're going to get that hay to her, and we're going to see what other needs she has. And that was that. That was over. So Gary has parked some equipment here. You know, Gary has gone above and beyond. He has built her a road. He has multiple times had other pieces of equipment over there, meeting other needs, helping with fencing. So Gary has done much more than the first mission, and he's really plugged in with his family. And he drives all the way from Micro, North Carolina, which is near Raleigh.
Wow.
And he's still invested. So I need people to just pull up and get the job done. And that's one of the things I really loved about Gary.
He knew what to do.
Yeah, he knew what to do. He didn't need to make a phone call. He just pulled up. So then the next day he got started, literally.
Show up and get it done.
Get it done, yeah.
That's right. All right. Who else are we going to talk about today? Hopefully it's Dylan with the heart of gold.
Oh, we haven't talked about Dylan yet? Oh, Dylan. Dylan is probably tired of me complimenting him. He's just such a sweet kid. And he's like 20. He's not even a kid. But so we got a call saying that someone had some Bermuda hay, which is really cool. We hadn't had that yet. So I thought, I'm sure there's going to be someone in particular that really wants that hay.
Yes.
Because we got all sorts of needs.
Coastal, yeah, I remember all.
Yeah, coastal. And so when it arrived, it was hundreds of bales. And it was just this young guy. And he was so respectful. And it just, I don't know what it did for us. It just made us take a minute and think, this young 20-year-old guy put all this on here, drove all of it here, and then he unloaded it all. And most of our help was all older people. You know, a lot of people were senior citizens who had the time to do all this stuff. And so Dylan won us over, and he got saved in my phone as Dylan Heart of Gold.
And I got to meet Dylan, I think, the second time that he was here, and I had to look him up on Facebook, and I friended him. So he thinks these North Carolina ladies are just crazy.
I friended him. I liked his profile picture. I'm like, Dylan's going places. Such a respectful kid. And then he showed up again a second time with hundreds of bales of hay, driving them over 4 hours, unloading them. And to find someone that young in farming is rare. And then to find someone that young with that kind of character
and heart
and so respectful, and you could tell Dylan just had a presence about him that literally everyone at that farm loved.
Yes.
And I want to visit his farm one day. I looked it up. It looks beautiful.
I do too. And I actually think you have another group, the group from Ohio, maybe?
Oh man, Ohio. Okay, so I love the Ohio group too, and there's so many people. But everyone brought something different. It just cracks me up. You know, you have to remember, we're tired. I'm stressed out. Me and Robert had turned on each other at least 10 times. You know, my kids are now watching their iPads all day, eating Oreos.
When they used to never do.
Never. And all we care about literally is getting hay to barns. And I have this pressure of like, I can't mess this up. Like, I just cannot mess up these deliveries. So the stress was really, really, really high. And actually, we had our biggest shipment ever coming during the Ohio crew's stay here. So the Ohio crew, you know, we don't know these people. We're just like, yeah, come on. So they were like, well, can we camp out on your land? I was like, sure thing. And so they roll in at night. They pitch. It's so cold. It's literally below the freezing point. And they pitch these little tents. Like in 30 minutes, it looks like an RV park. It looks so amazing. They've got like tents everywhere, a fire going. They've got griddles out. They didn't need one thing from us. They brought propane. They brought food. And so I was like, oh, wow, okay, these people really get things done. And so they helped move hay, unload hay, and then the next day they went and volunteered someone else. Well, the next night, we had 1,000 square bales come in from Virginia in a semi. And to move those was truly exhausting. And those guys had already volunteered all day, like moving trees off people's homes, like hard stuff. They brought like heavy equipment. Chainsaw. I think they brought like some sort of bulldozer thing. And they had worked all day. They come back to the farm, you know, to sleep. And we're like, hey, are y'all busy? And it's me and Robert and our two neighbors and 1,000 bales. I'm like, y'all busy? And they just look and they're like, no, we're not. And so they crack open some beers, and I probably took 2 hours, and we all busted that job out, and that was truly exhausting. That was probably the most exhausted I had been the whole time.
But you were still having a good time, and you're good people, and
oh my gosh,
just made it bearable.
If they didn't bring that cooler, then I don't think we would have made it. And so we get it done, and I'm like, oh man, I hope these guys don't hate us. We just made them work so hard. Oh, they're so great. And they're like, y'all want a party in the back? And my kids look at me, and I'm like, okay. And so we put the kids inside with their iPads. They fell asleep within a minute. It's like midnight. And so we go into the back of the woods, and we have a big bonfire, and they cooked for us. They made us burgers, sausage. I mean, they treated us literally like kings. And I stayed up too late that night. That was the first time we had really had fun.
Well, that's good.
Or let go.
That's good.
They made us laugh so hard. And so I really appreciate that about that group. To be able to balance hard work and play is really hard.
Yeah, and you needed that. You needed some kind of release, especially since you and Robert had already turned on each other a couple times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So they had their moment, and they came right at the exact perfect timing as well. So.
Yeah, they stayed for about 5 or 6 days, and then when they left, they continued to support us. They raised enough money to buy culvert pipes for people.
Wow.
So they were just willing to work really, really hard for the people in this area, and so they're just really special all around, honestly.
I know, and I know you have so many more, and I wish we could just talk about them all day. But
so a huge thing I took from this was I had to let go of the little details, and that's something we had honestly learned, my husband and I. After Olive's birth, we were trying to keep, everything the same, and we were worried about all the little things. And so starting in 2020, we as a family had learned how to let go a lot of the little things that maybe don't matter as much as we think they did. And so when this happened, I feel like our flexibility that we had learned since having Olive really came in our favor. I realized I can't vet people. That's something I can't do, but I can do this. I can make it efficient. I can get things in, and I can get things out. I can't take inventory. I don't know exactly the exact number of what's come in. But you know what I can do? Put hay in barns.
Yeah.
And so
it doesn't matter how much it is, but it's going out.
It didn't matter. And so I just sat down with myself and thought, I don't care what I can't do. I care what I can do. And these are the things I can do. And I'm going to do them 100%. And then if I can come back, something I wish I could have done was thank everybody. I wanted everybody to get a card, everybody to get a shout out. And I'm going to take the next 12 months to try to slowly trickle that in. But I couldn't do that.
And sort of this podcast that's what it's about, is to get the thank you out to all the deserving people that, and we didn't have time to name everybody, but you're very thankful.
Oh, very thankful. And, I really feel like they felt our thankfulness, and I just had to pray that those people, I wasn't able to bless them. It was really hard to take. And then not even give them a thank you card. They went through everything to get us this stuff. And so going forward, we pray for them as a family, just praying that they are blessed in the future.
I'm going to let you end this podcast however you would like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So is there anything you want to get out there? And I think that we're going to have more conversations, and maybe I'll end up having a podcast with some of the local farms that might still need some help to bring some attention to it. But I'm going to let you wrap this up because you've done such an amazing job of.
Oh gosh. Okay. I think looking back, I think what would I have done different, or, what did we not do well? And I just feel like that thought process for a little while doesn't do you any service. And so I guess if I wanted to end this with anything, is people don't need perfection. We just had to get hanging barns. That's all. That was the objective. So whether we did that the hardest way sometimes or the easiest way, it was just about getting to the end goal.
And it got done.
Yeah, and it got done. And we made a lot of friends in the meantime, but that was just the ultimate objective. And when you're talking about disaster relief, I'm realizing those little details are so not important. And if you're going to pick yourself apart, then it's not going to work out.
we're sort of alike, and so I feel like that advice can carry over into different things, not just disaster relief and distribution center. So it's good to let go a little bit and just make it happen.
Oh yeah, I had a lot of letting go. I mean, there was a time I ran out there with my jacket and no bra on just to help unload hay, and I'm like, sorry everybody, you know, like I was in my pajamas. So let go of that stuff and just get the job done.
Just get it done. So before we end it, I want to talk a little bit about what spring and summer are going to look like for Olive Branch Cattle Company, because I know before this you were having great events and lots of people were coming out. And so just give us a little overview of what spring and summer might look like this year.
Okay, well, spring and summer are going to look a little different than we had originally planned. But we're going to do a big emphasis on horse camps, because we realize parents really want their kids out here on horses. And so we are actually all winter making changes, so that can be easier for us and more affordable, which makes it more affordable for people sending their kids. So that's been a huge goal.
That's a great life lesson too. When you're young, if you at least know how to be around a horse and know the basics, I feel like that's a great skill.
Yeah, and that's like one of our things. Like, we just want people, kids, adults, whoever, trying something new. And we just want people to make a lot of fun memories out here. So we're going to do a lot of horse things for kids, and then we're going to do some toddler time horse things, which are only 30 minutes. Let them take a cute picture of a horse looking like a unicorn.
I love it.
Oh goodness, they love that stuff. And then we are so excited to get back to our special needs farm days. That's something we have really missed. I am so stoked. We now are going to add a American Sign Language interpreter to our events. And so just making it more inclusive than ever. So if you want to learn more about our Special Needs Farm Day, please visit our website, www.olivebranchcattlecompany.com. And we're always updating it, but you can read about it. And then if you feel led to donate, there's a tab you can donate, and all the proceeds go so that these families can go for free. Our farm doesn't take any money, but we use it to pay for therapists and, sensory tents and stuff like that. And then finally, this winter, we are getting our new cattle herd. So
that's exciting.
Finally, someone pulled up one time and said, Olive Branch Cattle Company, should it be called Olive Branch Goat Company? And I'm like, that's funny, mister.
Robert didn't think that was funny.
No, he didn't. So we sold our last herd 2 years ago, and it takes time. People have no idea. So finally, we're almost done with the fencing, and so we're going to get our new herd this winter, which we are very excited about.
Sounds like some good things happening. I can't wait. So we'll be back out to talk to you again.
Awesome, Shayne. Thank you so much.
Until next time, farewell. God bless y'all. And don't forget to thank a farmer.